Chapter 4 of Somme Battle Stories by Alec John Dawson. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 4. An Irish Officer Describes the Indescribable. The mellow Irish voice of Lieutenant M. was the first to welcome me on board one of the hospital ships on a recent fine morning. One was glad to find this very popular platoon commander a walking case. From others one had already heard much of the fine and dashing work done in the present push by the Irish regiment to which M. belongs; but there were certain other officers whom it was necessary to see at once on this particular steamer, and knowing of old Lieutenant M.'s nimbleness with his pen, one bade him sit down in the ship's companionway forthwith and write out a full, true, and particular account of the great push. Give us the realities, real pictures, something much more informing than any of your letters I have seen, he was told. Perhaps one made some other remarks not conspicuously more reasonable. Here, at all events, is what he wrote, in indelible pencil, on the thin pages of an Army Book 155, the cover of which bore the stains of French trench dust and English blood. There may be little here to indicate the dashing gallantry, the dogged, always cheery bravery of M.'s Irish fighters, but it is worth reading all the same, and as for bravery, well, there is not a battalion on the British front between Tripol and Guillemont which has not earned imperishable honours and distinction since the 1st of July. What you say about my letters home may be entirely deserved, my dear Skipper, but it is also, I think, quite unavoidable, even apart from the necessary censor restrictions. Let me tell you, sir, as one not wholly devoid of practical literary experience, that what you are looking for is simply not to be had. The business of this push, of any other important phase of the war for that matter, is too big for letters. Bedad, it is too big for literature itself. You won't get it on paper. You can get little bits, yes, and much good they will do you. Almost any one bit written is calculated to mislead the innocent. Why? Because taken by itself it is essentially untrue. It is only true when seen as it is seen in reality, one chip in a mosaic. Looked at all on its lonesome, it is essentially false. Why, if you'll believe me, the colonel of the battalion next ours borrowed a handkerchief from me to blow his blessed nose with in the middle of one of the bloodiest little shows that ever was. "Got a handkerchief to spare?" he said in a casual sort of way. "I used mine tying up a fellow's arm back there." I gave him my handkerchief. He blew his nose comfortably and shoved the rag in his breeches pocket. "That's better," says he, and hurried on with the advance. He was with the rear company of his battalion, and the way he managed to get in and out among his men, cheering them on, was wonderful. He was rather badly wounded later on, in hand-to-hand fighting with 4 Boches who had cornered 2 of his men in their second line. But he's all right, I think. Men were dropping all around us in that advance. It was an extraordinarily bloody business, and had been for 30 hours and more before that. But one remains human, you understand. One tries to get a mouthful of grub at certain intervals, and a smoke if possible. And a man wants to blow his nose on occasion, even though all hell's let loose, and, well, some of us prefer to use handkerchiefs for that purpose, if we can. You follow me? But how easy to convey an entirely false impression with a picture of a commanding officer borrowing a handkerchief and blowing his nose in the midst of a hot advance. Suppose I set out to depict something of the shapeless, grisly horrors of it all. God knows there's enough of 'em. What's the best effect I'll produce, especially on any one who's never been out there? An effect of shapeless, confused, purposeless horror. Well, is the push no more than that? You bet it is. Why, looked at from one point of view, it is positively beautiful. From the platoon standpoint, it may be a colossal lark, or a tangled horror. whilst from the high staff standpoint the main impression well may be one of mathematical nicety, perfectly dovetailed detail, and smooth-working precision. To give you an instance, the other afternoon I came mighty near to puking in a warren of Boche trenches we took outside Longueville. Nothing much. We've all seen worse things. A little heap of 4 dead Boches. They were decently buried an hour later. It just happened I was about the first of our people to see this particular shambles. You know how careful our chaps are with their kindly sense of decency. Their first thought is to cover a dead Boche's face, give him some decent dignity, even if they're not able at the moment to give him decent burial. English, Irish, Scots, Canadian, Australian, South African, all the British troops are like that. Well, they hadn't had time to clean up here, and these particular Boches had been done up pretty nasty, as they say, very nasty indeed. Some of our heavy stuff must have landed right among 'em. They were in the mouth of a dug-out. Right. 2 minutes later I came upon as homely a little picture as you'd find in the neighbourhood of any peaceful Irish or English village. 3 of our lads crouching over an old brazier, on which they were making afternoon tea, if you please, frying a scrap of bacon, and boiling the water for tea at the same time, and stirring in their own lovable Irish blarney with the cooking all the time. I took it in and passed on, pondering the queerness of the whole business. I wasn't more than 60 or 70 paces away when 3 Boche shells arrived, like a postman's knock, somewhere close behind. Just 3, and no more. One of the flukes of the day. Something made me turn back and go to take another look at the tea party. One of its members had been instantaneously killed, his head smashed to a pulp. Another had been horribly mauled about the loins, and was already being attended to by a couple of stretcher-bearers who had been resting in a dug-out within sight of the party, and themselves had been covered with earth and dust from the shells. I lent a hand, and they very soon had the poor chap on his way down to the dressing station. But I feel sure one won't ever see him again. You know that hopeless yellow pallor? It was of No. 7, and the man killed was of No. 5. I was back that way within a quarter of an hour, and there was of 's own section, you know, rolling a cigarette in a bit of newspaper, having just finished the bacon. His half-filled canteen of tea was alongside the brazier, which lay now on its side, upset no doubt when the shells came. Indeed, it was half buried. But told me the bacon had been saved, and in some queer way the tea. So he had had 's whack and 's, as well as his own, and as he rolled his cigarette in the scrap of a Sunday newspaper he was humming "Keep the home fires burning." My dear Skipper, you can no more hope to get the push described for folk who haven't been out than you can hope to get the world described or human life explained on a postcard. The pen may be ever so mighty, but believe me it has its limitations. What's the push like? It's like everything that ever was, on land or sea, and nothing that ever was as well. It's all the struggles of life crowded into an hour. It's an assertion of the bedrock decency and goodness of our people, and I wouldn't have missed it, not for all the gold in London town. I don't want to be killed, not a little bit, but bless you, one simply can't be bothered giving it a thought. The killing of odd individuals such as me is so tiny a matter. My God, Skipper, it's the future of humanity, countless millions, all the laughing little kiddies, and the slim, straight young girls, and the sweet women and the men that are to come. It's all humanity we're fighting for. Whether life's to be clean and decent, free and worth having, or a Boche nightmare. You can't describe it. But I wouldn't like to be out of it for long. It's hell and heaven and the devil and the world. And thank goodness we're on the side of the angels. Decency, not material gain. And we're going to win. End of chapter 4.